pretty incredible stuff. WikiLeaks founder has the right to a full appeal process. How is this going to shake out? What's the timeline going to look at? That's the big question right here. You have to consider the fact that he's been held in a Category A prison, Belmarsh, Southeast London, as an unconvicted prisoner now since it looks like April of 2019, thereabouts. So we're getting into 5 years plus right now already. This is beyond a joke. But it's no joke for Julian and for his family, his supporters, and for anybody that cares about transparency, a free press, and what governments like the U.S. and other NATO states, what they're doing with the public money that they're accruing in order to wage wars of aggression, undeclared wars of aggression around the world, and so many of them at that, regime change operations, etc. London's High Court was granted the jailed WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, the right to a fresh appeal against a previous ruling that ordered his extradition to the United States for what looks to be trumped up superseding indictments, a whole bevy of them, in fact, double jeopardy. That's what he's being subjected to. That's what his defense has argued. This is what his advocates say. It's hard to argue with the facts on this. They seem to be correct. The founder of the free press website, WikiLeaks, is saying that his prosecution in the UK is part of a larger effort by the US to punish him for publishing leaked classified materials exposing war crimes, real war crimes by the United States, unequivocally exposing them. And the fact of the matter is this, ladies and gentlemen. The fact of the matter is that those people who committed those war crimes on camera, in some cases, those who committed these war crimes have not even gotten so much as a parking ticket for what they've done. But the person who exposed the war crimes, a journalist working for an absolute global digital free press outlet called WikiLeaks, is being subjected to the most inhumane treatment and one of the largest stints of an arbitrarily detained individual in the modern era, according to the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer. This is chronicled in his great book on this subject as well. But if he's handed over to the United States on this extradition gambit, which itself is a violation of the bilateral treaty between the United States and Britain, which completely forbids extradition on political grounds. And he is a political prisoner by sheer nature of the fact that he has been targeted by the CIA. They have denied him due process. They have spied on him and people visiting him while he was having asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in the United Kingdom. Not only that, a plot to assassinate him, as was exposed. Mike Pompeo involved in these things. During his stint as head of the CIA and Secretary of State. So this is a political persecution. So if handed over to the U.S., you'd be kept in solitary confinement, no doubt. Treated like a terrorist. Treated like a Gitmo detainee. So Assange has been in custody again since April 2019, as I said. And when Ecuador, under U.S. pressure, revoked his political asylum, allowed the British police to do an extraordinary rendition on Ecuadorian soil, effectively kidnapping him and into custody and into a kangaroo court system. Why? Because, again, he published material that embarrassed the United States and NATO. Material directly pertaining to the war in Afghanistan, which is widely regarded now as a total debacle and a mistake by anybody with half a brain who's honest in the West and around the world. He's been kept in a maximum security, again, Category A prison at Belmarsh. It's a prison for hardcore serial killers, murderers, and terrorists. And this is where he's been now since April 2019. And the American case against him was revealed only after he was arrested in the UK, which validates his own suspicions, which were played down at the time, that the trumped up Swedish sex case against him was a gambit by the US and Britain to try to get him extradited to the US. And they laughed about it at the time, if you remember. They said, oh, that's a conspiracy theory by Assange. He's got nothing to worry about. If he's innocent, hey, he's got nothing to worry about. He's just turned himself in. They could have interviewed him by Skype. The Swedish authorities could have interviewed him remotely many times. They could have come to the embassy to interview him if he was a person of interest in this alleged sex crime case, which the Swedish prosecution dropped not once, not twice, but 3 times. It was revived more than once at the behest of the United States, no doubt. And as it turns out, the Crown Prosecution Service in Britain were going behind the scenes and applying pressure on the Swedes not to get, quote, don't get cold feet, end of quote. Who was head of the CPS at the time in Britain? Well, none other than the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, who looks like he was promoted for his good deeds. And those weren't the only good deeds he's done for the establishment. It's very interesting, isn't it, how politics works, how power works, and who is trampled underfoot. Julian Assange, as well as your rights to a free press, freedom of speech, and everything else that you hold dear in Western democracies. Ladies and gentlemen, isn't that the truth? American lawyers fought a legal battle against Assange. I was there during part of those court hearings at Woolwich Crown Court. Assange's defense team tore the U.S. mercenary prosecution to shreds, and not once, not twice, but 3 times. But that wasn't enough to sway the judges to keep him incarcerated in perpetuity, to the point whereby his health is suffered, his mental health, his physical health. It would be really convenient for both the US and Britain if he dies in custody. They can just wash their hands at that point, do a few retrospective TV specials about what a great journalist he was, and say what an awful tragedy this was. And everybody can wash their hands of it, and nobody can be held responsible for this great miscarriage of justice. But the problem is this. The problem is the support for Julian Assange is not just in Britain, it's not just in America, it's global. Because people around the world have recognized through this case that it crosses a major red line. And that red line is this, that the United States can extend its hand anywhere in the world against even a non-US citizen and extradite it. Why? For embarrassing the United States government by publishing information that is absolutely in the public interest and it is exposing some of the highest crimes on the planet. And for that, the United States can destroy that journalist, can destroy that publisher that's given them this license through their allies, through their, quote, junior partners around the world. They're able to exert universal jurisdiction, and not because they committed any crime. This was all litigated before with the Bradley Manning trial back in 2010. 2009, 2010. They revised it and trumped up a new set of superseding indictments to try to destroy Julian Assange, pure and simple. That's all that's happened here. Despite all the fancy cases made and convoluted arguments that are woven in Rupert Murdoch's Times of London or on CNN, on some of these other mainstream outlets that threw him under the bus a long time ago. And only recently, some people have taken an interest in the case. Why? Because they've seen how many people care about this issue. And it's forced a lot of mainstream journalists, like those at The Guardian, to actually report what's going on with regards to the Assange case. They didn't want to do it. They were quite happy to chuck him under the bus for the trumped up Swedish sex case, etc., declare him persona non grata and let him rot away in prison. That's the way most of the political intelligentsia, especially on the left, funny enough, treated this for the longest time. Now they're waking up to it. Great. Now it's time to free this man, send him back to his family Let him get on with his life. Let us get on with our business of free speech and the free press. I'm Patrick Henningsen. Thank you, Tony Gosling. Thank you, Jose Vega. This has been a powerful program. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Take care, you guys.